All right, here we go. Time for another stream. And this time, um, I'm going to talk a little bit more about, um, the lore and the story of Midvinter, or Midvinter, as we say in Swedish. Because that's been what people seem to want to hear about now, and I've also promised it for a few weeks. So um, it's about time that we take a look at that. So I actually made a little bit of a presentation to show you some art that I haven't done most of it. So thank you so much to all of the amazing artists who made the art that I shamelessly stole for this presentation. And also I made a presentation in 10 minutes, so uh, don't judge my artistic capabilities based on it, please. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna start a little bit about talk about folklore in general. Look specifically at which characters or which um, types of creatures that are in Swedish folklore and which ones that you will be able to meet in Midwinter. And also then I'm gonna wrap it up and talk a little bit more specifically about what actual story is in Midwinter. But just to start off, what is actually folklore? Because I've just seen people's comments and talking to people, I've realized that we might have different ideas of what folklore actually is. Um, Give me just 1 second. I wanna have a little bit more music because I actually, side note, I actually got this is actually a sketch for music for the game. So I thought I should have it as kind of background music and putting in another track as well in the playlist. So you'll hear a sketch without the final instruments, but at least a feeling of what it's gonna sound like in the end. But yeah, to continue. So folklore is basically what people out in the cottages actually believe, what they think in their everyday lives. I'd say it's more similar to superstition maybe, rather than religion or mythology. Um, because some people, for example, who have heard about Midwinter are like, oh cool, a game about Swedish or Nordic mythology. I really love that. But honestly, that's not necessarily the same thing. Because Nordic mythology, that would be, the gods and the Asa gods, being Thor and Odin, and Viking gods, Valhalla and everything like that, which was eventually replaced with Christianity up here in Nordic part of Europe. But that's the unifying state belief. That's how you unite the people to go in a certain direction. And yeah, it does often describe why does it rain and stuff like that. But folklore, I guess, I don't have the actual definition or anything. This just, yeah, this comes from my head basically. But folklore is more of um, when you can't find your axe, or you can something has been moved on a farm. Why did that happen? Or why do people drown? Why do people get lost in the woods? Why do things happen that happens in everyday life? How do we explain it, and also how do we protect people from it happening again? So at least Swedish folklore. I can't speak for Norway or Finland or anything like that. I guess Finland has well, that's a different story. They have like a other cultural background, so it's harder to compare with. Anyway, um, I don't know how it is there anyway, but like here in Sweden, it's like, as I've talked about in previous streams, like everything wants to kill you, basically. The environment wants to kill you. So I guess kind of we developed like folklore creatures to, yeah, as I said, like explain that, and also to have like a cautionary tale, like, yeah, don't go into the night, like into the forest at night, because then this thing might get you. Um, and also like you should be really nice to like the forest or the mountain, otherwise something bad is gonna happen. Which is something I really like. You should be respectful to the world around you. Something that maybe we have forgotten very much today. So I kind of like the belief that there are actually some kind of spirit protecting it. Like it might sound, I don't know, like hippie stuff, but like I like the idea that you have to respect the forest, you have to respect the mountains, because otherwise they're gonna kick back eventually. You know, it could be a metaphor for what's actually happening now. Like we destroy the earth and earth kicks back. You know, natural disasters. Kind of a sidetrack, but anyway. So that's to me kind of the difference between like folklore and religion, mythology. Like this is so much more personal in a sense. So much more close to people, like common people. You don't use folklore to get people to go to war or anything like that. It's so much more just to explain everyday things, and yeah, so it's much more connected to everyday life. So yeah, so let's look at some creatures that are in, well, Swedish folklore. It's mostly like the middle part of Sweden. I know that there are some in southern Sweden that are different, like quite unique, and especially in northern parts, especially when you look at Sami culture, for example, there that's totally different. Something that I'm not gonna cover today because it's not within the scope of my game, but I would really like to see a Sami game sometime, because that's amazing. So like my focus for this game has been well, pretty much what you would expect from Dalarna or from Småland, like that kind of thing. So people want my attention. They won't get it right now. So yeah, that's kind of the region in Sweden that we're looking at. So the first one is quite obvious. It's the protagonist of Midvinter. It's the gnome, the tomte. And actually he belongs to a group of creatures that are called in Swedish rådare, which means that they are the creatures that, like, they have a domain that they like protect and take care of. So his domain is always a he, because he is the farm. He takes care of the farm. So he is very closely connected to it. According to some legends or myths, the tomte, the gnome, is actually an old farmer who like was very connected to the farm, like maybe the one who built it, and then he died, and then he became this kind of spirit, continued taking care of it. Well, maybe that's right, I don't know. So, and also he's like, the gnome is one of the, you know, the ancestors to Santa Claus. So in Swedish, tomte mean, you know, we use the same word for gnome and for Santa. It's quite obvious when you see these pictures, like, yeah, you have the beard, you have the hat. Not necessarily a red hat, often depicted with red hats, red caps, but they didn't necessarily have that, or do. Yeah, so the thing with the tomte is that, as I said, he's always depicted as male, whereas on the other hand, the skogsrå, which I think is the next one on my slides, yeah, she's always female. I don't know why, but apparently that's the case. So her domain is the forest. So, I mean, you can see a lot of like I don't know, like the male character is like the domesticated, like building stuff, like really taking like the human side, and the skogsrå, the spirit of the forest, she's more like nature, she's more spiritual maybe, in the sense that we use the word today. So anyways, so she is I don't know, she takes care of all the forest, and she's not necessarily good or bad in any way. Like, she's not an evil creature, but she's definitely dangerous to a human being, because if you're a human walking out into the forest, you walk into her domain. You leave the domain of the gnome, who is, well, not necessarily on your side either. He is on the side of the farm. So if you, as like a farmer, aren't a very nice person, like if you don't take care of your animals, for example, he might turn against you, and like trying to ruin things for you rather than being nice. But anyway, if you step out into the forest and into the skogsrot domain, she might, for example, try and lure you off the path to make you lose your sense of direction. You can walk around the forest indefinitely, especially if you have some way like offended her or treated, I don't know, trees or anything badly. And she also often has this like seductive side to her, like you would see like a siren or a dryad in other cultures. So there are stories where like woodcutters, what's called lumberjacks, like walk out in the forest, they see this beautiful woman, and I think there's like this legend that if you meet, like, what is it? Like if you kiss the skogsrå, the spirit of the forest, like you will always have a connection to the forest. You will never, like, it will always be restless because like you've lost your heart to the forest, something like that. And you can tell, like you can recognize her from her back that is hollow, and has like dead wood in it. Often has a tail as well. Doesn't necessarily like to have clothes on. I showed you my version of her in a previous stream, but as I said already then, I wasn't really happy with her because I made it a little bit too, I don't know, casual, cheeky. I don't know. So I'm gonna make a new version. I've started to utilize it, but I have so it's gonna be like more dignified. Actually taking some inspiration from like Viking dress in this case. I didn't want to make him naked actually. I didn't want to make it too much of like what you see in all the games ever, like the seductress who I'm just so tired of that imagery, so I wanted to make like I want her to feel like a queen rather than like, I don't know, what's the word, like a succubus. I think I said the exact same thing in a previous stream. But yeah, so she could help you. She could help you find your way. But she can just as well like lead you astray and I guess even kill you. Depends on how you treat her forest, basically. So in this picture, that would be the skogsrå, not this one. This is probably an elf or I don't know, something like that. It's actually hard to find really good pictures of skogsrå. There aren't many really good drawings. And apart from the gnome and the skogsrå, there are several other rådare, like spirits or caretakers, that I've also talked about in other streams. So one example is the gruvrå, or the gruvfru, which is the spirit of the mountain or the guardian of the mountain or the mine, actually, if you use the, like, gruva means mine. So she would be down in mines, and she, just as skogsrå, she isn't good or evil, but if you like disrespect the mountain, she could bring down it, like she could make the mine cave in on you, And quite the opposite, like if there was risk for a cave-in, she could warn you if you had treated her with respect, like for example knocking before you went into the mountain, and so on. So helpful note from the audience: the skogsrå is also called haldra in Norwegian and in English. Yeah, haldra, huldra is another word for the skogsrå. It's true. So yeah, and there are also similar beings to the gruvrå that are more, I guess, recent. More like actual ghosts and so on. That would be people who had been living in or near a mine and so on. But I'll get to ghosts and so on later. But there are other protectors as well, like I guess there's for the sea and other kinds of water and so on. But I guess these are the major ones, especially the gnome and the skogsrå, the haldra, are like, I guess, the closest one to people, because you would have your farm and you would have the forest around you. So those would be like the most relevant ones to like common people back in those days. So moving on to other creatures. The troll is, I don't know, probably the most familiar one to even international viewers, if I have any. But I mean, the things that we often see nowadays in games is quite far from like what I grew up with thinking was a troll. Like a World of Warcraft or a Warcraft troll, you know, the large arms, I don't know, large hair. That's, in my opinion, that's not where I grew up with thinking what they look like. I mean, to me, they are like they look more like this, like more of a boulder, yeah, with arms, like a large nose, and like really, not necessarily stupid. They can be like really cunning, but they might give you the impression of being very primitive. Because you know they live out in the forest. They might have clothes, like very simple clothes, often rich, like a lot of jewelries and so on, and it could be pretty good with magic, etc. But I mean, they're not like Rastafari dudes. There are several depictions of trolls in different games nowadays, and I mean that's fine. I mean everyone can take their, make their own new kind of like interpretation of something. That's fine. But I wanted to like go back to the roots and kind of show what I think a troll is like. So it's gonna be more of this, and more of a still kind of small. I think more of this, like it's not gonna be the height of a human being. It's gonna be pretty small creature, probably. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about the troll. I mean, you probably know a lot of stuff about trolls already, so. What you might not know is what this is. Bortbytning, or I should have put in the translation, changeling. Also mentioned in a previous stream, but I'll go over it again. So the background to this is pretty dark and not so very nice. It was this thing that if you got a child that was like maybe had a physical like deformity or something like that, or could have some kind of challenge to them, people would often blame it on the trolls, saying that the troll had exchanged your human child for a troll child, which is not very nice to your actual child, which it probably still was. Um, so like the story says that like when you have a newborn, the troll will come into your house and they would take your human child and they would replace it with their own child in the crib. Um, and they would like use the human child for cheap labor, basically. I don't know why they couldn't do that with their own child, but I don't know. Maybe humans are stronger. I don't know. So, but anyway, that's what they did. And in order to get your own child back, you would have to basically cast a spell, like demanding your child back. There was something. Yeah, I think you had to like threaten to throw the changeling into the fire, like into the fireplace, and then the troll would come and like, I would never do that to your child. You're a barbarian. Give me back my child. Hopefully. I mean, I hope people didn't actually throw their own children into fire just because they thought they were changelings. That would not be very nice. So this is actually one of the things, the major plot devices of Midvinter. But I'll get to that later. Also, there is, you know, the theme of the changeling is still like present in other, like I've seen depictions of like the devil stealing a child and so on from a crib, more like Christian themed version of it. And also I know that the changeling from White Wolf, that's more like, if I get it correctly, like more of a what's it called? Like changing one's appearance, creature that can do that. So I mean, there are other like interpretations on the same theme, so to speak. But in this particular case, in Swedish folklore, this is what it is: like a troll coming and taking a child and leaving their own for their own purpose. So moving on to next creature that I've talked a lot about earlier. So this is Näcken. I don't know if there's a word for him in English. I don't think so. It literally means the nude in Swedish, for obvious reasons. He is usually depicted without clothes, and often as like a young, pretty attractive male. He's always male, but in some depictions I can actually show you this. I mean, this is a pretty recent depiction, but give me a second. Yeah, some versions he might look more. Where is it? There it is. Waiting for focus. Like more frog-like. I don't know. But even this artist, Johan Egerkrans, also shows him as more handsome in the same book. So his thing is that he sits in a stream, he plays his violin, and he drowns people. So he lures people close with his, with his violin, with his enchanting music, and when you get close enough, he will drown you. But he can also teach you how to play the violin. I would guess that there is some connection between this myth and the devil playing the violin. Probably, I don't know which one was first. It's a very strong symbolism. I always have to think about Bunuk Saints. What's the right word? Symbolism. What's symbolism? Yeah, it's a very strong symbolism there. So I'm playing the violin like really good and really passionately, and so on. So you could for a certain price. I can't remember what it is. Maybe it is like luring someone else close and allowing the Necken to drown them. It's something like that. Then he could teach you. Problem is that you're gonna be more or less driven insane by it. I mean, you will be able to play really, really good, and everyone would be like, totally like, I don't know, mystified by your music, but also, well, there are stories like you, for example, couldn't stop playing and stuff like that until someone like cut off the strings of the violin and so on. So yeah, so that's kind of his thing. There is also a horse called the Bekkehästen, which is kind of related. It's a horse, like I don't know, a large, beautiful horse, basically, that you would find somewhere close to a stream of some kind. And people would like, oh, this is a beautiful horse, and they will, climb on its back, and it would like jump down into the river and drown them. I think that was mostly with children. Yeah, Necken, I think he is indiscriminate in his drowning. He can drown anyone. I think there are some who say that it is basically that the horse is, one incarnation of Necken, but mostly they are totally separate, two different creatures basically. I don't know why he wants to drown them, to be honest. The story doesn't tell. I'm sure he has perfectly good reason to do that. Also, actually, there's a saying, like you can say, like you would say, like the devil take you. It's quite common in Swedish to say like "fan ta dig," and the devil take you. It was actually a thing you said back in the days, like Necken take you, because it was basically the same thing. Like someone would whisk you away and you would die. It was kind of not a nice threat to say to someone. But you could stop Necken from trying to kill you, to drown you. You could take a knife and you could like bury it on the side of the riverbed, side of the river. And I think you had to say something as well, like I can't remember the exact words, but there was some kind of spell involved, and then you would render Necken, helpless, basically. So yeah, so you will be able to meet him in the game. Here is the next one, Vettar, which doesn't really translate to goblins, but in Bilbo, that's the word they use. They use Vettar, like The Hobbit, the actual book, and also in Lord of the Rings. It's not a good word. Someone said another word in the previous stream in the chat. I can't remember if it was like wraiths, which is not really the right word either, because it brings up totally different like imagery in your mind. Not really the same thing. So these are closely related, I would say, in many ways to the gnome. As you might see from these pictures, not really good pictures, I'm so sorry about that. But as I said, I was really in a hurry. Like 10 minutes, I just threw in some pictures. So they also live on or very close to the farm. And but they don't necessarily help you in any way. They just live there, just like you. But you would have to try and get on their good side, because like you live alongside each other, you might as well try and be friends with them. So for example, like if they already had like a house or like a home, a burrow, where you, like on your farm, you would you would want not to, for example, build a stable on top of that burrow, because then they would be really angry because like the horses would pee and then it would go down through the floorboards down into their home, and they would not like it, and then they would come up and be angry with you. This is actually a thing. Also, you should be very, very, very careful not to empty a bowl of hot water close to where they lived, because then they would be very angry as well. And if you really piss them off, they are going to like sabotage the farm, more or less. They might steal stuff, or in other ways like sabotage the farm. But like if you're on the good side, they're just gonna, let you do your thing, and they will, they won't bother you. And they are much more like family oriented than the gnome, I guess. Gnomes are depicted to have like families sometimes, but more often depicted as lonely creatures, whereas Vet are often depicted as like in a group. So yeah, so more like a collective, I guess, than gnomes. Next one is pretty familiar, I guess, to everyone. Elves. Pretty similar. So there is another creature called what is it? Vittra in Swedish. That is, I believe, more common in the southern part of Sweden. I can't remember now, but I think so. I mean, I don't know, what should I say? You all know them pretty well. I mean, they're kind of spiritual beings, very fair, very floating around. To be honest, I myself have a hard time like telling what's Swedish folklore about them and what is from other people. I think in many cultures have some kind of like fairy-ish being in their lore, especially Irish, I guess. Like they have, I don't know, maybe, whatever, a lot of cultures. I mean, they would mostly stay away from humans. I mean, they come out especially like at dusk and dawn, I guess. Actually, this picture, and I guess this, oh yeah, you can see here as well. They will often like dance in a circle, and you can see where they have been dancing because mushrooms will spring out in a circle there, like on a forest floor. Which is, of course, now we know that mushrooms make that kind of pattern because of natural reasons. That's how their roots work. But I like the idea of elves dancing better. I love science, but sometimes it's just more beautiful with folklore. I wish this was really real. Yeah. I mean, so these are not elves like Lord of the Rings elves. These are more pixies, I guess, than Tolkien elves. This one is, I guess, a little bit less common. Lyktgubbe or Irblås translates to lantern man, or lantern old man. Or the other word can't really be translated. I know there are words in English because they are used in Lord of the Rings when Sam and Frodo are walking in like the marches. What's it called? When they're going to Mordor and this huge old battlefield. Anyway, if anyone knows, you can write it in the chat. So the thing is that sometimes when people walked out at night, or like just looked out of the window at night, they could see some light like moving about in the distance, and they had no idea who it was or what it was. So it had to be some kind of spirit, right? Will of the Wisps. Well, yeah, it's in that direction. Will of the Wisp probably, or Wisp could work. I'm just thinking wisps in Brave, Merida, like chasing them. I don't know the exact like background to these ones. If they have any agenda to like that, it's just like they are something. They are out there, moving about. Very mysterious. And there have been sightings to this day. People saying like, yeah, I totally saw something. It was definitely not a car. It was not, you know. It sounds a little bit like I saw a UFO. But, I mean, you never know. But I mean, also has, you know, the explanation like, imagine you live in the 19th century and you look out the window and you just see some light walking about. It was probably just your neighbor walking with their lantern, but there was no way to know, and you would definitely not go out there and check because, you know, you might as well get lost in the woods yourself. So, I mean, it was a different time. Just such a little thing as a light in the darkness could be, I mean, it could be anything. It could really, I don't know, it could be really scary. I guess, like, nowadays, we are so used to always having people around us and light around us, and, you know, always being safe and nothing is trying to kill us. We always know that we're gonna eat tomorrow as well. But it was different back then, especially like Sweden in the 19th century, which is the time when my story takes place. Like, if you left the house, like, you would have to have a lantern, or there was just darkness at night. And I mean, Sweden in winter, it's dark. It's dark for a long time. I mean, sun can set at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it will be dark until, I don't know, 10 in the morning. So it's really dark for a long time. I mean, in the northern part of Sweden, in the middle of winter, the sun doesn't even rise. It's actually dark for days or months in a row. And in an environment like that, of course, you're gonna like, well, you rely very much on your light source. This is like very much a sidetrack now, but actually the invention of the candle was a huge thing, because then suddenly you could, you didn't have to sit everyone in a family or a community around the same fire at night to do something. You could actually take your candle and sit like in a corner and read, or something like that. Like you could be more independent in a sense. Like you could go out with your own candle, like to the loo or whatever, and not only have darkness around you. So that was really, I mean, you don't really think about that nowadays. Like, yeah, it's light. I mean, there's always some light source, but it really wasn't that case. Like just a couple of 100 years ago, it was really different. So I guess that's why these creatures like were imagined, because like light was so special. Like you saw light, like what can it be? Like wow, it's significant in a different way than it is today. Now you would just, okay, you see some light and it's like, meh, I guess it's a car. I don't know, it's someone walking in the forest, I don't care. Yeah. So that was a very long talk about that. Let's move on. Let's see, what time is it? Oh, I'm just talking. We'll see how far we get. Might do more than an hour today, actually. Looks like it. I haven't had dinner yet, It's gonna be interesting. Anyway, so the next one is gonna be. I mean, this is kind of familiar in a sense, because ghosts, I suppose, are present in like every culture on Earth. Just a guess, but I don't know. A lot of cultures. I mean, we always wonder like what happens after death. I think death is one of the things that is most difficult to deal with for most people in most cultures. Like the thought of mortality is really really terrifying. Like what happens when your close one dies, or if someone dies horribly, are they just actually gonna die, or are they gonna come back? Like if I murder someone, am I actually like even if no one catches me, am I free from the ghost as well? Like, are they gonna come back and haunt me? I don't know. I guess it's an embodiment of the conscience as well of some people. Anyway, and in Sweden, or like in our folklore, we have also the gast. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the difference is that a guest is more bound to a specific place, like a wraith would be probably the most correct translation of it. So wraith is like imagine, actually Lord of the Rings here it is actually a pretty good example. Like not the ring wraiths, but the ones in if you have actually read the books and not just watched the movies, because they're not in the movies, but pretty early on, the hobbits are like locked in these like hills, and those would be like wraiths, I guess, like more guardians of that specific place, and they are dead people that are for some reason like locked to that place. Whereas ghosts would be, well, they could be locked to this place as well, but they would be more locked to the specific event that happened, I guess. Like if someone was murdered in a castle, they would haunt that castle, because they can't get any rest until, I don't know, the murderer has been caught, which is never gonna happen if they die. But you know, yeah, barrow wraiths. Exactly. Just looking at the chat. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so nothing, I guess, really new to tell you there. But I don't know, just wanted to point out that it's present in Swedish folklore as well. Next one, you already saw it. The Kraken. Many of you might not know it, but it was actually originally a Nordic kind of folk tale. I mean, the word literally means like, what would you say? Like the poor thing. Oh, kraken. Oh, stackars liten krake. It would be like the something maybe you would call an old horse, like the poor old beast. But there's nothing of a poor old beast about this thing that you would meet at sea, and it would drag you down into the depths. I think this is actually a really old tale as well. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this dates back to like the Viking Age at least. You know, we were really seafaring people. I say we, but you know, the people living in Scandinavia back then. Like if you spend months and months upon the sea, and you know, either you see stuff that you can't explain, or like you see the washed up, you know, torn up ships washed up on shore, and like you need to explain it. So I guess that's kind of where it comes from. So yeah, so it would be some kind of beast, like with, I don't know if they actually had tentacles to begin with, or if that's a later addition, but it's some kind of huge sea monster anyway. Kind of a wretch. I don't know. The word wretch isn't very familiar to me, so I don't know. Um, so yeah, that's the Kraken. Oh, Kraken. I think that's all the creatures that I had. Yes, it is. Good. So it just took me. It wasn't even an hour to get through all those creatures. So now I thought that I would talk a little bit more about actually Midvinter and like the story of the game and which creatures you're gonna meet in the game and like how that also connects, I guess, to the history that I want to convey, like the actual history of the country that I want to convey. We'll see how far I come. So you play as the gnome, if you remember, that guy. And just as all the other creatures, you're not necessarily good or bad. So, I mean, your job is to protect the farm, not even necessarily the humans living on the farm. You should just make sure that the animals on the farm are fine, and there's food for everyone and stuff like that, and like nothing is displaced or broken, and like the locks are, everything is locked at night. Someone, excuse me. But as it plays right now, he's kind of a nice guy. I mean, he's a bit cranky, but he's kind of okay. But you, as a player, get to decide what he actually chooses to do, of course, because the game, you have a free will within some limitations. So basically, what you're faced with is this. So you meet a troll who, as you might have seen the trailer, if you've seen it, basically says that, I sense that, or I smell that there's an unborn child here. And then goes on to tell you that she will have it. She wants the human child. And that's not really good, is it? So you might wanna, not let her take the child. I mean, you could just ignore it and go on with your duties. But you might want to do something about that, because it's not really nice to let the troll take the human child. If nothing else, I mean, it's not nice to the troll child either, being put like that in a human family. It's not really nice. So you can choose to either, like, you have to fight back in some way, but you just woke up from a long time of having not really done much because there was no one living on the farm. There wasn't much to do. So you need to gather energy, basically, to fight her, to defy her. Shouldn't really use the word fight, but don't want to spoil too much about the actual end game, so to speak. But you can choose to gather that energy either on your own, just doing what you're like supposed to do around the farm, basically, like doing your duties as a gnome, solving puzzles, if you talk like gameplay terms, around the farm, putting things back where they should be, helping the humans in many ways. But it just gives you so much every time you do it. So what you could do instead is talk to Skogsrået, Spirit of the Forest, this lady. And if you're convincing enough, she might help you. But she won't just help you just like that. You're gonna have to offer her something in return, because that's what it's all about. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So you might have to help her, and also you might have to help some other creatures along the way, because it might turn out that she wants something that you can't get unless you also work with someone else. Could be maybe Necken, or the goblins, the Vettar, and so on. So you will meet several of these creatures, and not all of them that I've talked about today. I mean, it wouldn't really make sense to have a kraken in the game. Wouldn't really work out. Next time, another game, maybe. But yeah, so that's kind of the thing. So you have like the farm and some areas beyond in the forest and so on along the stream, where you can go just like you wish, and you don't have to do. You don't have to work with a skogsrå. You don't have to do your duties on a farm. You don't actually have to do anything. But time is gonna tick on, and eventually the troll is gonna try and steal the human child. And it's up to you if you wanna, like, how you want to prepare for that moment. So that's kind of like the story. So you will interact with these creatures. Like you will have dialogues with them. And also a lot of the story is going to be told like through the environment, through the items that you find, and especially the actual history. Because as I mentioned, the game takes place in the 19th century. Well, if I take a step back, what I realized when I started developing this game is that it was borderlining on becoming a little bit too I don't know if that's a word in English, but like national romantic. Basically, like I didn't want it to feel like I was like, oh, look at all this cool stuff that we have up in Sweden. I wanted to put in some more like a little bit deeper significance as well. And actually, I watched a musical called Kristina från Duvemåla. It's based on Vilhelm Moberg's books about people who emigrate from Sweden to Northern America, to the United States in the 19th century. And to me it's very, very powerful because it's really about struggling people. Like, it's a lot about their struggles while they're in Sweden and like trying to basically survive in a very hostile environment. I mean, they live on a farm, but they hardly get enough food to feed themselves. And that was the case for a lot of people in Sweden because at the time we were overpopulated. The country was overpopulated and a lot of people lived in very harsh conditions. A lot of people were starving and so on. And there was like religious reasons for people to want to move from Sweden as well, and so on. So actually, it was like 1.5 million people, or 1.3 million, or something like that. People left Sweden within a time span of 100 years, which is quite a lot of people, and a lot of them went to Northern America. And I guess I wanted people to just, think about that. Just like 100 and... I don't know, it's 100 years ago, 150 years ago, a lot of people ran from Sweden to other countries. Just want people to remember that, because it's kind of a subject that's very... seeing how the world looks today, I think it's important to remember our history and see our role in what is currently happening, and like how people treated us back in the days when we needed help, and so on. So as I've said in other streams and so on, I don't want to write it on people's noses. I don't want to be like, you should think about this, you should have this opinion. Nothing like that at all. I just want people to remember, like, this is actually what happened. We have not always been a very a rich Western country with it's not always been that way. We have also been actually okay, I'm going too much away on a tangent. I can talk about this for hours. I will not do it in this stream. Just realized. But anyway, so it's gonna be a little bit about that as well, but that's more the story that you're gonna see in the environment. Like, you're gonna see some traces of the family who used to live there, and also you're gonna see a lot of stuff from the family that just moved in. So you're gonna see, like, I hope that you will understand more of, like, why did the old family leave, um, and why did the new one move in, and like which hardships might they face within like the few coming months. So that's kind of the story that I want to tell. Let's see, where are we? Yeah, it's just past 8 here in Stockholm. And I guess that's more or less actually what I wanted to talk about today. So I've gone through some of the lore, some of the creatures that you will meet in the game, and some that you won't meet in the game because it would be far too much, and so on. So, and you've heard some music looping. I hope you're not tired of it yet. So as I said, this music that you're hearing, hopefully here, it's sketches for the music that is gonna be in the game. So like, this is actually gonna be a live violin instead of, you know, synthesizer. But I'm really excited about the music. It's gonna be awesome, and like, it makes all difference in the world when you actually get music that's meant for the game in there, and like, really, yeah, this is what it's gonna feel like. I don't know, music can really make or break a game, like sound in general. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed the stream. There weren't so many questions in the chat today, but that's fine. If you have other questions about anything, just give me a shout anywhere, like email, Facebook, anything. Please like, share, follow, whatever you can do anywhere. Every thumb up is great. I mean, I love you so much for every like, share, everything, because it means the world. You know, how social media works, you know, with how it works today, it's just so important to you make it possible for me to get seen in a way that wouldn't be possible otherwise. So yeah, thank you for watching, and have a great continuation on a Monday, and I'll see you in the next stream, I guess. So take care.